Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
Hi everyone, Jason Hunt here, inviting you to join us every Saturday morning for news. The week's headlines in science fiction, fantasy, horror, comic books, video games, plus Comic-Con updates, and the weather, and the occasional interview along the way. We call it Good Morning Multiverse. We hope you join us every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, right here on Sci-Fi for Me TV.
We've crossed paths more than once. I've whispered in your ear, shown you harmless little temptations. I am unknowable, yet you know me intimately. But you can always know me better. Collected here are 20 twisted tales that will thrill, chill, incite, and delight you from some of the most imaginative minds your species has to offer. This exclusive Indiegogo printing of The Devil You Know Better will be limited and numbered, with signatures from Mike Barron and Hart D. Fisher. Stretch goals achieved for this campaign will add interior chapter illustrations by Stefano Cardacelli. The Devil You Know Better. Back it on Indiegogo today, while you still can.
Your favorite podcast is Critical Blast.
And good evening, everybody. I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at CriticalBlast.com, Chief Envelope Licker for Critical Blast Logistics, Myopic Proofreader for Critical Blast Publishing, and I will answer the phone and help you with your data processing needs for your crowdfunded campaigns through Critical Blast Consulting. That out of the way, you're used to us coming on here and talking about some comic book crowdfunders when we talk about comic book crowdfunders. This is different. This is a comic book. You can order it. You can get it online. You don't have to pledge for it. This thing is available. It's being sold direct. It's one of these Gumroad operations. I've seen Gumroad before. I have not been in that arena a lot to fully understand it. So we're gonna educate ourselves tonight here. And to help us with that, we have Mr. Melvin Cartagena, the writer of Plot Holes. It is no, not that guy, not that guy. This is just the plot. The other guy put the holes in it. Wow.
There's a comic book called Plot Holes then?
Yeah, it's by Sean Gordon Murphy. He made a couple of $100,000.
Oh, okay. Wow. No, I did not know that. Man,
Yeah,
Plot Holes. So is it educational then? Is it like a thing on how to make comics or how to write for comics then? I'm assuming.
No idea. I have no idea. It was a superhero thing.
Wow. That's very interesting. But so, yeah, as RJ said, I'm the author of The Plot. I wrote and drew a comic book called The Plot. And I don't know, what would you like to start, RJ? Thank you for having me over. Thank you for having me over tonight to talk about my comic book.
Glad to do it. Let me share the screen here because I know that there's not a lot to see on it, so it won't stay for very long. But this is the website for The Plot. I'm assuming that since it says by you and only you, that you wrote it and drew it as well.
I am both the artist and the writer, yes.
Okay. So then my first question would be, why in the world did you get into this crazy business when there's so many other ways to make money that is more lucrative? I mean, like digging ditches.
No kidding, right? Yes, true. But, well, I guess it's funny you mentioned that when you talk about other ways of making a living. I like storytelling in general. So even though I wrote and drew this, I don't really consider myself a cartoonist per se, more like a writer who makes comics. But I'm very interested in storytelling in all its forms. And the comic book is almost like a gateway into the brand that is RoboPulp, which is my Twitter handle. But it's also my artistic name. It's also like when you think of, like, say, Banksy, Banksy is known as the one Banksy. So Melvin is known as RoboPulp. Like, if you go through the book, you'll see RoboPulp on some of the pages.
Okay.
And RoboPulp is really more about storytelling in various forms. So, for example, I'm very interested in audio drama. I love telling stories through the medium of sound. Like, I love when people do that well. It's thrilling to listen to that. And also
all the time, every day. I listen to the old classics radio station where you're listening to the Green Hornet, Gunsmoke, all those classic radio dramas. And realizing, the sound effects that they were using in a studio to make it sound like they were in different places.
In different places, often also done live in front of an audience sometimes as well. I think Orson Welles did something like that, the Lux Theater. I think it was the audio drama part. I think it was live. It was like a live thing that he did with his players. But I like, like you said, I like the old ones, like The Shadow, for example. After Midnight, I think, is one that I know of that I like a lot. It's science fiction, horror based. But I also like modern ones, people who simply just learn how to do it, learn how to write for that format. They take advantage of technology available to us now, and they just start doing that. So I'm one of those people. I want to take advantage of what's possible to do now with just a device and a few apps. So audio drama is one. YouTube also, like, I see people doing really clever things with just, again, with their phones, with like cameras in horror sci-fi web series. So that's something I'm interested in doing. I'm interested in filmmaking as well. And in fact, that's what I started with. But I always kept coming up against a wall when it came to filmmaking. Like, I had this idea of, like, let's make a movie. Let's do the punk rock aesthetic of DIY. Or let's just grab an iPhone, grab a DSLR, and let's just make a movie. But I haven't run into people who have that same attitude, who share that attitude. Let's just, for 6 or 8 weekends, let's just shoot and make a movie.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, what can I do? Like, what can I do instead where I don't have to rely on other people? And this was the result. This was a comic book. I'd done some artwork through 2018, 2019, and it had no dialogue. It was just artwork, action, people gesturing at each other. And I don't know why I did it. I was just following some impulse. And after that, I finished it, and I was like, well, this is good, but I'm still disappointed that I don't have a book, like a full-length comic book. I've done short pieces, little short stories, little short essays in comic book form, appreciation, short comics, but I hadn't made the book. So 2020 begins, certain things happen. We go into lockdown, and I guess everything that happened leading up to that, I think it warped a lot of people's brains. It definitely did something to my mind where I pick up this artwork again, I start looking at it, and I start seeing something that I hadn't noticed before. I was like, if I just take certain panels again and I reuse them, but I put different dialogue, I actually have action. I actually have like a number of things happening. So I started experimenting with that, using post-it notes, just like writing dialogue on a post-it, then taking a photocopy of something else, writing another dialogue on that, another piece of dialogue on that, and just going and going. And eventually I realized, no, I actually have an entire book here. So it was a really cool experience. On the one hand, discovering that I had this little comic, Jack in the Box style, hidden there all that time, but I couldn't see it for whatever reason. And then exploring digital tools to take all this artwork and try to make a comic book out of it, make the PDF that I'm sharing now with people, that it's available on the Gumroad link. So it was a unique experience.
So this is a digital comic that's available off of Gumroad. Why did you pick Gumroad? I mean, with so many people going for print these days, given that we've got print on demand, we've got the Kickstarter and Indiegogo opportunities that people are taking advantage of. Was that just you were happy with PDF? You didn't want to go the print route?
I like the print route. I like to do it, but it doesn't feel like a sustainable thing now because one thing that happened before pandemic in 2019 is I decided to get a table for Boston Comic Con. It was quite pricey to get a table, and all I had was just short pieces. So I turned those into mini comics, and I was selling those. And I'm excited because to me that was like a bucket list kind of thing. Like I loved it when I would go to Comic Cons as an attendee, and I see people, like independent artists selling their comics, interacting, signing. I'm like, that's like a rock star, man. I want to do that. I want to be one of those guys. So in 2019, I decided to do it. And I have these short pieces, but who knows? Let me do it anyway. I get a table. I make all these prints. I'm excited. I go to Comic Con, and the weekend goes by, and I sold nothing. Like I literally sold nothing. It was just crushing. Like Thursday afternoons happens. A couple of people stop by, nothing happens. And I'm like, well, it's okay. It's okay. It's the first day. It'll get better. Friday, the next day repeats itself. I'm the same thing. I'm still kind of excited. I'm talking to people. I'm doing things. But again, nothing. Like I sold nothing. Literally zero. Now it's like Saturday. I'm like really crushed by now. But I'm like, it'll get better. It's still, it's not over. Go ahead. Just go. So Saturday I go, again, interact with people, do things. But again, nothing. By now I'm like, it's like Sunday. It's like the last day. I'm like, I don't even want to go at this point, but I'm like, you pay for the table. Go ahead, go show up. Anyways, you never know. I go the same thing. Like literally, the weekend went by. I sold nothing. Like nothing. Completely just crushed and demoralized by the experience. So because of that, it sucked. But at the same time, it made me realize I'm not being very scientific about this. Like I need a method. I need a plan. Like I need to plan better, and that includes you need to also let people know who you are and what you're doing. Yes. So part of the whole incident was that happens, and I realized, I didn't really put myself out there. I didn't let people know that I was going to be there that weekend. And when I really got honest with myself about it was because I didn't want to be on the hook. I didn't want to put myself completely out there. And I realized, okay, so that's one thing you have to deal with. If you want to do this, and you want to be an independent artist, you have to kind of face that. You have to just put yourself out there, believe in what you're doing. You have to be your own
media relations guy.
Yes, yeah. So that's actually what led me to talk to you. I was like, one thing that I was like, when I make the PDF, and I'm like, okay, what are you now? Like, well, talk to people. Start reaching out to podcasters, start reaching out to anybody who is into comics at all in any way, and say, hi, this is me. I'd like to talk about my comic book. Would that be okay? So that's so it sucked, but at the same time, it kind of got me out of that little comfort zone that I was in. It kind of made me realize, like, if I want to make a go out of this, I had to put myself out there and, good or bad, just deal with those things and talk to people, reach out and let people know who you are and what you're doing. So because of that incident also, and because of how expensive it is to get a table, I don't know if you've ever done that. Have you ever gotten a table at a Comic-Con?
I have smaller Comic-Cons, but yeah, it is expensive. Fortunately, I had, okay, so the first times I did this, I had like the one book and I didn't get a table. I was just, there as a convention goer. But on Sundays, everybody left on Saturday. And there's a lot of abandoned tables, and you just like sit down and
you just grab one. You just put your thing down like,
yeah,
nice.
Nobody checked. So I'd sell a couple of books on a Sunday, but I only had like the one book. If I'd have bought a table and put one book out there, no matter how many copies, it'd be like they'd be gone. Now that I've got like 5 or 6 books that I can put out on a table, it's different. It's a better investment for me because there's more to choose from. People stick around longer. The longer they stick around, the more likely they are to pick up the thing that interests them. You have more chance to engage with the customer or the potential customer. So
Yes. Well, you just pointed out is exactly why I haven't done the table thing, because of the fact that I'm kind of an unknown quantity. I'm like, let me just keep working, this circuit. Let me talk to people. Let me just get the word out there, and not necessarily a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo, but maybe work out a situation with a publisher where they would print out a limited number of books, and okay, let's find smaller Comic Cons where you don't pay as much and you have a better chance of recovering the cost. But I realized, like if you don't have that boost, if you don't have that at least a tiny little bit of a fan base, it's a big gamble to take on top of paying for a table to print out books out of your own pocket. So I'm kind of avoiding that right now. Based on that incident, I'm much more cautious with that. I'm like, okay, focus on connecting with a fan base, get people interested in what you're doing, and then we'll do that part. Then we'll do, hey, I'm going to be at this Comic-Con this weekend. Come on over, say hi. I'm going to have books at 10% off, something like that.
Yeah. Now I was looking, to make the video thumbnail for tonight, and I went over your Twitter page because I figured, well, that's where I'm going to find the image, because I couldn't pull the image off Gumroad, and of course I'd trimmed it and everything else.
Oh, no kidding! They wouldn't let you save it as a JPEG.
Well, I could probably get this, but I'd get the whole. I'm pointing to it like you can actually see it, because I wasn't sharing the screen now.
I like what you did with that. Like, if you don't mind later on, like, you can explain how you did that little effect of putting the image on that little TV. That looks really cool.
Oh, sure. I just used PowerPoint.
Okay.
But I ended up getting the full picture off of one of your tweets so that I could get it to fit into that television set.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's in my what's it called? The pin tweet. The pin tweet at the top of my profile.
Yeah.
I think that might be it.
I didn't find any other artwork from the book. And that's what I was. That's one of the things that people really want to see. I mean, there's a fine line between like dumping all the pages onto Twitter and say, oh, here they all are, and dumping the first three, where people can see how it starts, kind of get into it. By the third page, something's happening that's hooked them, because that's where the hook's got to happen. It's got to happen in the first 2 to 3 pages to keep them going. And then they're like, well, now I'm hooked. I got to know what's going on. Where can I get the rest of this book at?
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. I actually did post one, but it's been a few weeks. But I'll start posting again. Actually, what you said is a very good idea to get that out there. And I guess if you don't mind, I'll tag you as well on Twitter so you can just share it with your people.
Yeah, I'll share it out there.
Okay.
I better make sure. I'm sure we're following each other.
I think we are. Okay, I can't find out now, but I'm pretty sure that I'm following you. But no, it's interesting.
I'm following you now.
Oh, okay. I thought we were already following each other.
I just made absolutely sure of it.
Okay, sounds good then. Yeah, so we're connected. Because one thing that I'm doing now to sort of not exactly tutorials, but more like how-tos. Well, I wouldn't say how-tos, but let's say the book starts with like the first 4 or 5 pages. I don't know exactly what, but it's like it's people, but there's no dialogue. It's just sort of like I'm approaching it like a Western showdown. It's like these people in suits looking back at a guy sitting on a table, and they're sort of glaring at each other. So it's a little bit like a Western. So I am going to start posting content explaining a little bit of the process of certain parts of the book. So like the opening is it's silent because it's like a Western. It's imitating Westerns. Sure. The showdown where like they're staring at each other and they're waiting to see who's going to reach for the gun first. So it's a little bit like that. And then dialogue starts. Yeah. And then there's a little bit of dialogue. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go, keep going. You get the dialogue after the first couple of pages there, after the.
Okay, yeah, and then there is a line that hopefully, a line and a reaction, another line is a reaction to that line. That, as you said, that would be the hook. So I'll be sharing that. I'll be posting pages and sharing what is the methodology behind that particular thing, because the comic book is also a bit of an experiment for me in both in book design, but also in trying to create an effect on the viewer. So just to briefly go over that, there are some pages in the book where the main character is flanked in the middle panel, and then there's 2 of the people there's an interrogation scene. The first part of the book is sort of like an intense interrogation scene where little by little, you're getting little nuggets of something that happened. So I was exploring, okay, because it's very talky, how can I make this look interesting through page design? So, for example, I'll have a page where like the characters in the middle panel, and then there's the people, these guys, these men in black, are surrounding him, literally, figuratively surrounding him on either side of the page. And sometimes, depending on who has the upper hand in the interrogation, depending on what the main character says, the panels are a little spaced out. But then when the interrogation is kind of turning on the main character and he's kind of being grilled, the panels, like the guys in the panels are larger and they're sort of pressed in, like he is sort of in the middle, literally being squeezed. So I was trying little things like that, that hopefully you as a reader, you won't notice it consciously, but maybe on some level that'll register. You'll get the idea of like suffocation or like a relentlessness or like a little bit of relief when the panels are up and you're like, there's a little, okay, there's more room now. You don't feel like you're being suffocated. Like that combination of text and words, hopefully will create those.
More than just sequential art now, because so many people, they're like they write a story and then they just like show the pictures in the sequence of the events, and that's sequential art and that's comics, and it is comics, but you are taking advantage of what the medium has to offer in the terms of the presentation layer of comics by using the panels as part of the storytelling device, even though not overtly, and causing that sort of claustrophobic sense. Very, very, very few people do that, and even fewer do it well. The two that spring to mind all the time when I think of who's really using comics to the maximum capability that the medium has to offer is Alan Moore and what he did with Watchmen, and Jimmy Gownley with what he did with Amelia Rules. Because
Jimmy Gownley, I never heard of that name. I'm gonna have to check him out.
Oh, you've got to check out Jimmy Gownley. He does YA graphic novels now for Scholastic, but his Amelia Rules series was it was written kind of like Peanuts and comedy, and then you get 2/3 into it and you turn the page and it's like, that wasn't nice. Why are you stabbing me in the gut now?
Oh wow!
And
how do you say his last name?
Gownley.
Gownly. Ley. Jimmy. Okay, Jimmy Gownley and Amelia Rules. Okay, I'm gonna check that out. I never heard of that, but anybody who does, like you said, who pushes the medium, who tries to take the medium to different places, I'm always interested in that. And in general, again, I just like good, solid storytelling as well. So I was trying to do that with this, so who knows? Maybe I'll check out Jimmy Gownley and I'll make a new comic if he has an influence on me.
Oh, his book, The Past is a Present, which is one of the chapters of the Amelia Rules series, is brilliant stuff. He's got this one section here where they're middle schoolers and they're all friends, and this one girl's father has been called up to active duty, and she's at the airport saying goodbye to him, and he's saying I'm going to be gone for so many months. It's like a year or something. She'll, how many seconds there are in a year? And she starts going down and explaining it to them as the panels are getting smaller and smaller. And she basically comes down to like there's like 2,500,000 seconds in this time period that he's going to be gone. And then you turn the page, and this is the thing about comics is you've got that control of when you turn the page, and you can smash somebody in the head with a hammer when you do that. And the page is, she's drawn very, very small on a completely stark white background. And on the previous page, she's hugged her father goodbye and she's watched him walk away. And she's talked about how many seconds it is. And you turn the page, there she is on that stark background. She says 1001. She started counting. And I was like, I just got choked up right then. I was like, I can't read no more, dude. You're just killing me.
Well, I love when someone does that. When I read someone and they can have that effect on you, it's like, okay, I'm gonna study this comic because I want to see how did this person did that. I want to be able to do something similar. Hopefully, when you read in one of my comics, or if you listen to one of my audio dramas, or something I make on YouTube, something like that. So there's that aspect of it, and that I'm reading it for enjoyment, but I'm also reading a comic book for I'm studying it as also. And I think that's what people do. Like people who go on to make comics themselves, at some point you stop reading it so much, but you start kind of taking it apart and figuring out what makes it work, what makes it effective. So that's kind of what I was doing, and I was trying to lay some of that in the plot. It was a little bit of an experiment, but it's also like a suspense story. And I was also throwing in a lot of stuff involving conspiracy theories because I love that stuff. I don't particularly believe in them, but I find them very fascinating. And some have been yeah, exactly. They're really cool, and so that's kind of what I was doing here. I was throwing in one that I love a lot, like the sleeper agent. Like I think that's one's been debunked. But when I was little, like I thought that was so cool. The idea that you could train someone to, become an assassin, let's say, and they would forget that they went through all that training. They would just simply go live in a country, live this average life. But one day they get a phone call and like someone says a particular thing, a sentence. It probably doesn't mean anything, but that sentence is like a trigger to remember who he is. And then he goes and completes the mission after, decades of nothing. Like I found that stuff so fascinating. So I kind of threw a little bit of that in here. I kind of threw a little bit of that in there using modern tech. I threw a little bit of Men in Black, not the Will Smith Men in Black, but the original Men in Black as perceived.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I find that terrifying also. So I kind of threw that in there as well. And that, I don't want to say too much, but those two elements, I kind of wrapped them around this thriller, I guess, a sci-fi suspense thriller.
So was there anything that made this kind of storytelling the story you wanted to tell? I mean, was there an influence in your life that's like, oh, I've got to tell this kind of a story because this is what I have experienced or believe?
There's a lot of things. I cannot really pinpoint one, but like paranoid thrillers is one. Like the Manchurian Candidate. I love that movie. It's such a bonkers, crazy movie, but really well made too. The Parallax View. Love that movie. Like love it. All the President's Men. The adaptation of All the President's Men. Love that. And those are the more overt, I guess, the overt influences, and that I was trying to do something that had a paranoid feel to it and taps into all those fears of, governments and agencies out of control and all that. And a more general way, I am just a fan of suspense. Like if I were to, not horror, I know there's crossover. Suspense sometimes becomes horror and back and forth, but suspense is something a little different than horror. And I am a fan of that sustained tension when you just sort of put someone on ease and you maintain them there for like a long stretch of time. I am a huge fan of that. So I was trying to do that as well. I was like, can I do that here? Like, I love it when people do that, but I think it takes skill to do that. Like, let me see if I can do it in this medium, in this medium where you have, you can take advantage of, you can use the page, you can use panel size, you can use a lot of graphic tricks to try to put people at ease. So that was one of the motivations for that. Just loving suspense and wanting to try it myself to see if I can have that effect on whoever reads that comic book.
So did you do this work digitally, or is this traditional pencils and you scan the pencils in?
The artwork is traditional. I use mixed media paper, and I would just simply pencil the artwork. I would just pencil the figures. Then I would take gesso, this opaque gesso, coat the pages with it, and because it was very opaque white, and what that did is that kind of hid the pencils. Like it made the pencils very faint, and it also made the page very toothy, almost like a canvas. And then I would kind of go over it with pencils again, and I would use this pencil called Sketch and Wash pencil. It's like you can use it wet or dry. If you use it dry, it looks like a sketching pencil, but if you wet it with a brush, you get varying degrees of gray shading. So it's almost like ink wash in a way. So that is traditional. Then I use this application called Canva, and they actually had a template called comic strip. So I use the comic strip to stay in a somewhat wide format because I'm more influenced by movies than by comics when it comes to display. Like the standard format of the comics, it's a little hard for me to work in that format, but this is more comfortable. Another example would be the newspaper comic strip. I like that format better, that wide where you have like strips going this way. Yeah, that makes more sense for my eye.
Pages. Yeah, your pages are more landscape layout than.
Yes, they're landscape like that. So it's weird. It's something that I'm gonna have to deal with. Will I ever be able to make normal comics? Because I really have trouble with that format. Like the portrait page. It's something that is hard for me to like lay out things. But in here, I could do it. I could just simply take them, crop them, put them there, and then put the dialogue. And I can move the dialogue, or I can move them closer depending on what I wanted to do. Or I can make them further apart. Yeah. Or sometimes I would have a couple of pages of nothing, literally, just to sort of like indicate silence. Like if I was trying to do the cinematic equivalent of a silence, then I would do that. I would just simply have pages. And yeah, there you go.
So the characters that are them, that are they, the men in black here, I almost get a sense that they're not even men, because they sort of look like they look aliens. They look like aliens trying to pass themselves off as men. They've got the sunglasses on, they got the hat pulled down, and the sunglasses just give that great big wide eye effect that you associate with the grays whenever people talk about the gray aliens and such. But I do like what I'm seeing with the pencils on this, and yes, folks, I have it now because I bought it. I paid $10 to read this story, so I am perfectly fine with doing that, and I don't feel cheated just yet. And I hope I don't. I'm being an honest reviewer there.
Let me know afterwards privately if you liked it. Like, you don't feel obligated to do that now, but. Yeah, so funny. What you just described is, that's the description that I've always read about them since I was little, and I would do documentaries. I would watch documentaries about these guys. Like I said, they seem terrifying, but also fascinating. Like a cobra, I guess you could say. Cobras are like beautiful to look at, but I wouldn't want to get near one.
From on film. Yes, they're beautiful to look at on film.
Exactly. Yeah, they had that amazing hood and the colors. Like they look just like gorgeous creatures, but I wouldn't want to like pat one on the head, like those guys that just kind of make them mad on purpose. They just start smacking them on the head. Like, so it's kind of the same with these characters. Like, I find them fascinating. The fact that also they're always around, like UFOs, MIB. Like, there's these I don't know exactly what is the expression for that. I guess I would call them cultural debris or psychocultural debris. These things that have always been circulating around our culture, American culture, for decades and never go away. They're like on the fringes, like UFOs kind of go away for a little bit, but you still hear them once in a while. And then suddenly they're in the mainstream, they're in the news, they're on everywhere. Then they kind of go off to the edges again, but then they come back. Like, they just never go away. Like trends come and go, but these particular subset of, I don't know if cryptid would be the word for it, but this particular set of, beliefs doesn't go away. Like, it's always circulating. It's always circulating on American culture. So it never goes away. And I find that fascinating because our culture is one that is very transitory. Nothing ever goes away. Like, there's something that thrives for a little bit culturally, and then it goes away. A trend or a dance or a phrase. But this never goes away. This gray aliens, UFOs, like, these never ever go away. They're always circulating somewhere.
Somebody always sees Bigfoot somewhere.
Yes, that's another one. Now, I'm maybe not where you live, but maybe further west, you have these people going into forests looking for Bigfoot, and there's even like shows, I guess, like on network TV, a show of like people trying to find Bigfoot, and then they find like a chunk of fur, and they think it's Bigfoot, and then they do a DNA, and no, it's just a bear that probably had a fight with another bear and lost a chunk of fur. Just things like that. But
a half hour of talking with the witnesses and a 3D CGI reanimation of the event. And then the other half hour is them standing in the woods, yelling and beating on trees with sticks.
Yeah,
that'll call anything. But,
I imagine they had the forest rigged up with like light vision cameras. They have all this stuff that if there is such a thing, they're probably like, I'm not going there with all these nutcase. I'm gonna get shot.
Exactly. It's an animal, they know to run from people if they're out there, but there's enough cameras out there now. Everybody's got one, so eventually if there's something out there, then photographic evidence will have to turn up.
You figure, right? Yeah, because like you said, there's cameras everywhere. Like, people put cameras in their yards, in like the perimeter, in forest perimeters, drones. Like, there's so much footage now. It's like, when there's a camera running at all times now somewhere, but we still cannot find this cryptid, I guess. Or for that matter, the alien grays.
I forgive the UFO people for not having photos, because I've used my phone before to take pictures of the sky. When we had like a supermoon a few years ago, it's like the moon was just like a little bit extra big. It was cool to look at. I'm like, I'm going to take a picture of the moon, and I had I had this nice building in the background, some trees, and there's the moon. And I took a picture with my phone, and I went home and I looked at these pictures, and like, here's the building, here's the trees, and there's a little bitty pinprick of white light in the sky. I'm like, where's the moon? It was right there. It was like, it looked like this to me, and it looked like this on the phone.
It's like call, if you have an iPhone, call Apple and ask them to give you an upgrade, because I don't know, their phone lied.
Yes, absolutely.
When I see
It
some
looked fine through the lens, but I don't get it. I'm not.
I totally see that, yeah. And if you have like a good phone, like a very expensive phone, like I would be mad, like, you know, like I have a $300 phone, but if you have like the $1,500 iPhone, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Why am I paying all this money for?
Yeah. I swear to God, I saw a UFO. No, that's not just a speck of dust. It was, so deciding to do this as a comic book, what were your comic book influences before creating your own? I mean, were you a collector? Were you a reader?
I am a fan, yeah. I'm not exactly a fan of superhero comics, but I do like what Frank Miller did with Daredevil back in the day and Batman. I thought that was really cool and really original. And then, like you mentioned, Alan Moore with Watchmen, that was really cool. That was a really unique thing he did with that. That and V for Vendetta. Outside of those and I'm not really into superhero. I mean, I like Jack Kirby, but it's more because it's just Kirby unbound, Kirby just running wild with his imagination, and he happens to be using superheroes. I actually wish we could have seen like a universe of Kirby that wasn't tied to superheroes. Unfortunately, he kind of had to stick with those, I guess. But influences,
science fiction stuff, but
yeah,
because
but it always had to be tied to superheroes in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was always in the universe of the superheroes that he worked for. You know, we had Commandy, the last boy on Earth. There wasn't really any superheroes on that, but they did make a reference to Superman. He had the Demon, but the Demon then sort of became his own sort of superhero. So yeah, it was comics.
Exactly, you know, it was just the business he was in. But influence is it's a little tricky. I mean, I'm sure if I were to offhand say, Matt Kine. Have you ever read him by any chance? I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name right.
Is it Kindt?
Kindt, yeah. Like I discovered him in the early 2000s. I saw something called Pistol Whip, and I really liked what he was doing with the time there. Like he had this little series of panels and pages that were like 10 years ago, 10 months ago, 10 days ago, 10 minutes ago. He had this little breakdown that eventually leads to an incident, but that he starts all the way back to 10 years ago and keeps going. I thought that was really cool. So I kept checking him out. And then I saw this book he made called Super Spy, which was a series of spy stories that were loosely interconnected. And that was really cool. Like I really enjoyed that because I'm a fan of espionage. I love spies. Then, I'm free now. I saw another comic book by him called Revolver, involving alternate realities. And again, like I thought that was really cool. Like I really like what he was doing. And what else? Mind Management. He's done other stuff that is not science fiction, but I tend to stay like he's right up my alley when it comes to topic and thematic subject, because he's science fiction, espionage, alternate future, alternate realities, and I love all that stuff. And he does all that. And I like what he was doing. And I guess one thing, I don't mean to say this to sound disrespectful, is he is not like a great artist, but the storytelling is so solid that, you know, it's good. It works out to be good in the end. And to me, that was encouraging because I'm not really someone who's into drawing. Like I'm not one of those kids that doodle in high school and all that. Like I'm more into like writing. I'm more into like having two characters interact and see where things go, or have a character find something and then just see what happens next. I'm more into the writing end of things. Drawing is something that I almost have to force myself to do.
Yeah, one of the most intriguing and pretty good seller too of comics in the late 80s was Matt Fiesel's Cynical Man. And if you're not familiar with Matt Fiesel, he did these series of books, and his last name's Feazell. I think it's
Matt Fiesel. I actually have seen the name, but I don't think I've read him. I don't think I have read his work. But I'm gonna check him out then.
Let me make sure I got the name spelled right here.
Feazel?
Cell. Feazell.
Okay. I'm missing one L. Okay, I got it now.
And I've got his work up here now. Now, understand, this came out monthly. This sold as good as any other independent comic at the time.
What was the title of the book again?
Cynical Man.
Cynical Man. Okay.
And this is what he drew.
Oh, I think I see that now. Like, oh,
He drew stick figures in a published comic, and people were buying it up because of the storytelling.
where was this published at? Do you remember offhand?
Oh, I don't know who the publisher was at the time, but I mean, it might have even been his own publishing, but it was in the comic store. It was on the shelf next to every other book. It was
I can see. I like the fact that, yeah, like he probably chose, how can I get this, weekly, like maybe weekly, or you said monthly, like to be able to crank that out, like, again, maybe, this enables you to do that, to be able to just continually keep building on it. Because for me, that's when I'm doing my stuff, like whether it's comics or whether it's something else, I want like a pacing. I want like an energy. I want you to feel the energy of the storytelling, of the pacing, of the things happening. And hopefully for this comic book that came through, you will notice that. You'll kind of feel like it's a bit of a relentless thing. It's a bit like almost like breathless. And I feel like for that, if the artwork is very pretty, it almost kind of downgrades that speed. Like when I like to take someone like oh my god, he is known for doing beautiful, like his panels are paintings. Alex Ross, for example. Again, no disrespect intended to him because he is a phenomenal artist, but they're so beautiful that they almost distract you from the story. Like his panels are paintings. And are so perfect, so well made, so elegantly made that it's almost like you just stare at the panels and don't really read the comic book. At least that's the effect that when I try to read his stuff, I tend to just kind of look at those and I kind of almost forget that there's a comic book, there's a story attached to all this artwork.
Yeah, there's some books that transcended that, where you're able to truly get into it, but they were a while back. I think Marvel's that he did was with Kriegman. I hope I'm saying Krieger.
Kingdom Come, maybe.
Kingdom Come. He did with Mark Waid.
Wade. Okay.
But he did Marvel, which was Marvel's Kingdom Come.
Okay, that was DC.
And it was well, yeah, and they did the Earth X kind of thing, which was the larger arc. Those were fun reads, and he still painted all the panels, but I don't think he quite got into the full photographic detail that he does in a lot of things now. I think he's more cover artist now, which he probably doesn't have to do anything more than that anymore.
Exactly. Maybe it's better for him that way. Maybe he's a fine artist that we don't know about. He has this other side of his life where he exhibits his paintings in museums or art displays and things like that.
He definitely brought something new to the industry that we hadn't really had, at least in a long time. Funny story. I was in Chicago on a business trip, and my wife at the time was with me, and there was a Warner Brothers store at the mall near where I was taking these classes and getting this training. I was like, we're going to go there tonight. We're going to just look around and get something. And I knew specifically what I wanted to get. I wanted to get the Alex Ross plate of the new Teen Titans that he had done, or the classic Teen Titans.
Yeah.
I had the Justice League one. I wanted the classic Teen Titans as a companion piece to it. So we went to the mall. It was raining. It was drizzling. It was sort of an outdoor mall where, different buildings, but they weren't all connected. And she's like, it's cold. I'm wet. I don't want to be here. Can't we come back some other time? I'm like, fine, we'll come back tomorrow. So I left the mall. We went back to the hotel. The next day was sunny. Went to the mall after training, went in, and Warner Brothers like, can I help you? I was like, yeah, I wanted to get the Teen Titans plate by Alex Ross. And she said, well, what's your name? Well, kind of friendly of you. So I told her. And then she disappeared. I'm like, okay, well, she's going to go get me one. And she comes back. She says, I can't find anything for you. I'm like, well, I didn't order it. I just wanted to come in and find one. She's like, oh, I thought you were here yesterday when Alex Ross was in the store
Oh
signing things."
man.
And I
Wow.
looked at my wife and I was like, "This is
So
unusual."
cold, huh?
I had no idea he was in there. He's a Chicago native, so he would show up every once in a
Mm.
while and do stuff like that. But yeah, if I'd have known he was in there, I'd be like, here's the key. Sit in the car, stay warm. I'll be
Yeah,
back.
go over there. Go to the food. If they have a food court, just go over there. Get a hot beverage.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, that's pretty cool. I haven't been to Comic Cons since pandemic happened since 2020. But I'm interested in seeing, and maybe Matt Kine isn't one of those because he is the closest thing that I consider to a direct influence, in that his themes and ideas are right up my alley. It's the stuff that I'm very fascinated with, and that he was encouraging. He made me realize, okay, you don't have to draw like one of the artists at Marvel or DC, which is, I'm not into superheroes, but the visual energy of those drawings is something that you cannot escape it. Like, it's just there. It's something that you see all the time. So that was another one who had a big influence on me is also Jim Mahfood. He goes by Food One. I had a chance to
yeah,
meet
I
him
know
at
Jim Mahfood.
2018 Comic Con. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm aware of Jim Mahfood. He's a good artist. Very
Yeah,
good
I
kid.
like that style too. That kind of cartoony, very loose, very like rubbery style. And again, that was very encouraging to see that, okay, you don't have to make everything beautiful to work. Like, it, you can actually bring your own thing to it, something of your own. So for this particular comic book, that style was fitting. A world that is kind of gray, murky, immoral, no, there's no boundaries except for that one moment something happens, which we're not going to say. Well, people might get a glimpse of that, but how did we get to that? That's a real story.
Exactly. So I've shown off a little bit of the artwork here. I've kind of jumped around throughout it, so nobody's got a clear concept of, hey, I just read the book.
Keep them guessing. Yeah, make them wonder.
Yeah. So, folks, if you are at all curious now about what's going on in this story, $10 PDF from Gumroad.
Gumroad, yes.
I don't know why they called it that.
I wonder. Yeah, a very unique title.
Yeah, and it's so close to Gumshoe, like a detective, that I keep wanting to say
Detective,
that.
yeah, which I'm a big fan of also. Like, which, a matter of fact, that's where my the second half of my name comes from. RoboPulp. Pulp comes from that, from Pulp Fiction, the classic Pulp Fiction, the Black Mass magazine, Argosy. These magazines that featured, the Continental Ob, Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler, Philip Marlowe. A lot of those characters that would become influential in, over the next generation of writers were influenced. I'm convinced by those pages. When you think of like Mickey Spillane, I think he missed that. I think he was at the very tail end of the pulp. But I'm sure those guys had an influence on him creating Mike Hammer, which became a huge seller back in the day. And I would even say up to the present, whatever detective now is hot in TV or in a streaming service, you can arguably trace that back to Red Harvest, the novel, the Dashiell Hammett novel.
Absolutely. When I saw the name RoboPulp, the first thing that the image that conjures up is one of these retro future robots. A lot of these amazing stories, they had these futuristic robots on them. And if you look up 1950s sci-fi robots, you get the whole Klaatu Barada Nikto kind of,
yes.
The segmented arms and the bucket head.
But clunky analog technology.
Yeah, a lot of them were also very sleek. The rockets were, always very aerodynamic and came to that nice little needle point at the tip. And you'd fly those to other planets and land them and just fly them off again. You never had to refill or anything.
Yes, yeah, they could go for a long time on one tank, I guess. They were, like you said, retrofuturistic. They probably ran on something else, like on a little atomic pill or something. But I am a fan of that. I am a fan of that noir. And in some ways, Blade Runner kind of fulfills that. Blade Runner visually has that, the retro and the futuristic noir. So, and then Robo comes from science fiction. That's probably my favorite genre of writing, because it's a genre where the idea is kind of the driving force behind the story, behind the narrative. So those two, science fiction and crime fiction, that's kind of where I exist, where my sensibilities exist, my artistic and storytelling sensibilities.
Yeah, and then things like, Blade Runner was both, because it was a science fiction, but it was also a noir detective thriller.
Noir detective, yeah. Just curious, do you like the original better or the second one, the 2049 one?
I was not crazy about the 2049 one.
Oh, no kidding! Wow.
I guess,
No, nobody is. I guess no one that I've asked is, and I
I can't
actually
say
kind of
why
like the second one
didn't seem,
better. Strangely enough.
it just didn't seem to do anything for me. It's like, okay, well, that was a story that happened. But I don't know, the first one was more disjointed and kept me guessing about what am I watching. But at the same time, I felt like I was supposed to feel that way, like watching a David Lynch movie, like Eraserhead. I'm like,
Yes.
what is on this screen? I have no idea, but I'll never forget it. So,
Exactly. Yeah, it's more immersive. You're not sure what's happening, but you're just kind of following. And
yeah,
I guess that's why I tend to like the second one better because it's more generic, it's more standard, it's very much almost by the numbers, but you had a detective detecting, and that's the one thing you don't have in the first one. Harrison Ford, the most detecting he does is when he tells a computer to enhance and move here and there. That's about most of the detecting he ever does. Whereas in this one, you have Ryan Gosling chasing clues, following leads, and doing things. And I kind of like that better. For me, that works better. So I kind of like the second one a little better. It's still very long. Though. Still a very long movie.
yeah, and oh, they could have cut a half hour out of it, and I would have enjoyed it a
I
whole lot more
agree.
if they'd have stopped all those word tests, where they're just like saying random words out of the dictionary to see what your heart rate and your eye impulse do.
Yeah, I
That was
actually didn't mind that. I thought that was a cool way to find out whether he is off base or not. It's more just little things like, for example, when he goes to Vegas to find Harrison Ford, and they might be like 10 minutes of him just walking through the desert into the hotel where he's staying. It's like you probably could have cut that, like little things here and there. You could
yeah.
cut. Maybe they'll re-release it with a different cut, and maybe it'll do better on DVD. I don't know, Blu-ray. I don't.
They can always, they're releasing different cuts of movies all the time now. We've got three different Justice League movies out there.
Oh, the Snyder cut. Yeah. I
Yeah,
haven't
which
seen that. I mean, 4 hours. I don't think so. No, I mean, I already have an issue with movies being 2 and 3 hours long, and now a 4 hour movie now.
Yeah, but you know what? You just cut it in half. I'll say this:
Oh,
I watched the Josh Whedon one, and I was like, I wasn't like, okay, I need to see the Snyder cut now because it was obviously better than this. I just watched. I'm like, yeah, DC's not making good superhero movies, and I was done with it. I didn't care. Just walked away, said, yeah, bad movie. And then I had the opportunity to get the Snyder cut because, from what we do all these movie reviews. So offers are made, and we take in product for review, books and movies and such. And I had the opportunity to get it, and yeah, it was 4 hours long, but by God, it was a movie. It was a story that made sense from beginning to end, and there weren't all these strange jumps that didn't make sense. And it was a different movie. It was a completely different story. There were scenes that were taken out, and there were brand new scenes reinserted. The whole deal with Superman, when his reappearance, completely different the way it was done. When he
uh-huh.
shows up, and it's a turning point in the battle, which is what it should
Oh,
have been.
wow.
In the
Oh,
original, it was like, he shows up and he gets punched out and he's laughing on the floor. I changed my mind. I'd rather be dead again. That was definitely Josh Whedon humor slipping in there. That did not happen in the Snyder cut. So I'm like, okay.
Snyder is not a funny guy, and I don't mean like he doesn't do humor very well. He's more, how would I say?
He's
I'm trying to think of one
over the
word
top visual
for Zack
action.
Snyder. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, say
he's
that
all
again.
about the visuals.
Visuals,
Like
yeah, but I'm trying to think of an attitude. I guess a one word for attitude, and it's more like stoic. I guess maybe stoic. Like
yeah,
there's really no sense of humor in the world of Snyder, and I guess that's why it's so shocking when Joss Whedon comes in and starts throwing all these like fun. Like everything is fun. It's colorful, which I think didn't really go. When I saw the Whedon one also, and I remember remarking how like stocky Ben Affleck looked as Batman. Like he looked almost like a Ninja Turtle. And I think it's because the outfit was not meant to be so brightly lit. Like it was probably meant to be underexposed and some color timing to make it look darker. And he looked, yeah, almost like a rock mold thing kind of thing, just a
yeah.
little offbeat looking.
And the version of the Snyder cut that I did watch, there's two of them. There's the Snyder cut, Justice is Gray, and it's all
Mm.
black and white. The entire film is black and white, so it made the costumes look a whole lot different.
Okay, so that's probably the intended way it was. And then maybe he will crank up a little bit of desaturation, just enough
Yeah.
color just to get it back, and that's it. But yeah,
I did like the costume better than up until the last movie, better than any of the other costumes I'd seen because it was flexible. It wasn't this whole, piece of armor where I've got to turn my entire body to make a move. I'm like, you can't fight in that. That's not possible.
that was actually pretty cool. Like for the Bat v Superman, when you see Batman's first appearance, that was actually pretty cool. Like that was a really impressive fight scene where he just takes that guy and just slams him into the floor and he breaks through the boards. Like,
and he fires off the grappling hook and he's not only on the side of the building, but he swings around the side of it. None of the other Batman could do that. This looked like a Batman panel.
Like he could actually move, yeah. It's amazing that it took until that movie to finally get a mobile bat suit. Because even in the Christopher Nolan Batman, there's still a lot of mobility issues in that movie. So it leads to a very messy first fight. Like, I don't know if you remember this, but on the very first one, Batman Begins, that first fight in the docks is such a mess. Like, it's like a spinning Steadicam shot, and then there's all these inserts, and I'm like, what is happening here? Like, I cannot tell who, but I guess Batman wins the fight somehow.
Yeah, he had to. It's his movie. Now, the Robert Pattinson film, I kind of liked that costume, and I really liked the movie more than I thought I was going to like it.
I was interested in seeing it, but then I found out it was 3 hours. I'm like, no, come on, like why? Like,
it's long. It's long. But you know what? People who won't sit down for a 3-hour movie will sit down and watch 6 hours of episodic streaming. Because it's just in smaller chunks. So like you still spend 6 hours watching something. But
it's tricky. I was gonna say I don't know if you watch Stranger Things. I never watched the show, but I remember noticing that people said that Netflix is not doing the binging anymore. Like they're actually releasing it in chunks, but not like everything at once for you to binge. And they're saying that actually is helping the show because people watch up to a certain point and then speculate on what may be happening because they kind of ended in cliffhangers. So I don't know where you are on that.
All the way through it, yeah. They released like the first half of the season, and then the second half of the season. And here you may not want to watch it now because the second half of the season was 2 episodes, but the second episode was like 2.5 hours long.
Oh wow!
It was just this one big continuous don't break away story. So I was like, this is a really long episode. How many were there in it? This is the last episode? Oh, look where the bar is. It's got a long way to go.
You're like, okay, I think I'm going to stop here and pick it up on the weekend or something.
Exactly, which is what you got to do with the Batman. You just got to break it. But it's not the thing I liked about that movie was that it's not a superhero comic book movie. It's a Charles Bronson kind of 1970s movie. Like Death
I like that. I'm a fan of Charles Bronson. I'll watch it like that. Well, I guess I can do it now. I can catch it on streaming and just divide it. Yeah. But no, like what you said, you sold me on the movie now. They should have said that. Like Charles Bronson, but in a bat suit.
Yeah, there's none of this, origin story. I shall become a bat. Oh, this movie opens. He's there. Boom. He's in business. He's already with the police.
Oh, that's great too. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's none of this, slow build to finally get to see the hero. He's there. He's throughout most of the movie. So it's like if Charles Bronson were to take on a characterization of the Zodiac killer. That would be the Batman versus the Riddler in this one here.
Oh, wow, I like that. No, I like the sound of that. I'll check it out then. I'll find it and I'll just break it up in like 1 hour intervals, I guess, or 90-minute intervals. That's what I grew up with, the 90 to 100 minutes, the perfect length for movies. Now we're in this weird thing where every movie is 2 hours plus.
And they're getting longer. Well, and if they're too long, then they make it 2 movies. I mean, The Hobbit was a very small book, and they made it into 3 movies.
3 movies, yeah. I only saw the first one with my niece when she was a little younger, but I'm not a fan of fantasy. I've never read the book, or I've seen the original 3 movies, but more because it was just there to see it. But like fantasy is not a genre that I'm naturally drawn to. So I've avoided the other 3, the ones that came years after.
I could read the book faster than I could watch all 3 movies in succession. So,
oh wow! It goes to show you how long these are.
They really extrapolated it. All right. Well, we've talked about just about everything here at the end of the show.
I know we went off on a tangent, but it's cool. Like it's cool to like talk about all these things to get a sense of where people are in current entertainment. because I'm actually kind of reaching into the past. I love Tubi, like love that platform. There's so much good stuff there. And there's a lot of 60s and 70s movies. So when you say Charles Bronson, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. No, I'm sold now because there's a ton of Charles Bronson movies on that platform. So I may give the Batman a try. You actually saw me on the movie. The studio failed to sell me on.
There you go. Go out and watch it. Yeah, if you like that kind of stuff, Pluto is a streaming service that's out there too, and it's like
I've seen a few through that. I like it also. Good stuff in that one too.
Yeah, thing is, it's not like a streaming service. It's like whatever's showing, is you watch it now.
Yes, yeah, I get it because it's gone. It may never come back again.
Yeah, it's like old style television when it was appointment television. It was like, if you didn't get home from school in time to see Rudolph, you wait another year.
Yeah, no, we were lucky, I guess, when VHS came along and then DVD and Blu-ray.
Yeah, that took away a lot of the magic that television brought into houses because, especially during the holidays, this was an event. If a big theater movie was becoming the NBC movie of the night, because that's how it would happen sometimes, if you didn't get home and watch it, you would not see it again, maybe ever, until we came up with this VHS concept.
Yes, they hung on to the movies for a very long time until they felt that, okay, now we can make money off it. Now we'll put out a limited edition VHS kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Mel, it's been good talking with you, talking about comics, talking about your comic and your approach, and it's been interesting. I like what you're doing there, and you're coming at it from a different angle than a lot of other creators do, which is the true definition of an indie artist, I think.
Thank you so much. And I'll keep sharing new stuff with you if you're available, if you have time to take a look at stuff, and maybe you'll come over to talk again.
Sure, absolutely. Anytime you want to come on and show something new, we'll have you in here. We'll schedule a slot.
Thank you so much. And, well, thank you so much for having me, and good night, everybody. The link for Gumroad, the plot, give it a try. If you're a fan of conspiracy theories, this is for you. If you're a fan of suspense, it's for you.
Click on it, folks. Get your copy. Read it tonight. Won't take you that long. It's a big, fat indie book that reads fast. So I for $10, you can't go wrong with it.
I respect people's time. I try to have you in and out in an hour.
There you go. All right, everybody. Thanks for showing up tonight. And as always, while you were here, we just hope you had a blast. Good night.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you. Bye.